Hey, everybody, it's Ken McElroy here, and I'm here with a partner, CEO, president of our company, Leslie Bryce.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Leslie, for those of you who don't know, is in charge of all our ops. So her job is to manage hundreds of people and basically draw all the performance out of the individual properties. And for those of you who don't know, we manage all of our properties in-house. With the exception, over the years, we've actually hired third-party management companies, and we both have worked for third-party management companies. That's actually how I got the start in my business. That's how she got her start. So we have a tremendous amount of experience around property management. And so for the purpose of this, we're going to talk to you guys about why certain property managers should be doing certain reports, and I want to show you this, and you're not gonna be able to see all the detail, but this is basically how we do ours. So these are called KPIs, or key performance indicators. And the green means that the properties are doing well. The yellow means that we're in a caution, and the red means we need to get on the call with them. And so now, that's how we do in our properties, but every property management company is a little bit different. Sometimes you won't even hear from them for months, right?
Right.
So what we're for the purpose of this is that, what reporting should we be doing and why? So let's start with, at the very basic level, because some of these folks, have one rental, no rentals, and some of them have lots of apartment buildings or commercial or multifamily or storage or whatever it might be. So where would you start here on what are some of the very basic reports?
Basic reports. Physical occupancy is paramount. You got to know how many units are occupied at all times. This is something you can get daily, weekly, monthly, depending on your comfort level. For us, we look at every day.
So this is the why part. So here's the thing. What you want is you want to be able to get reported to on whether it's vacant or not, because if it's vacant, no income. That's the why, right?
Agreed. But that's not the holy grail. Vacancy is just one factor. There's always some reason for vacancy. You have to look behind all of that. So we want to know how long a unit has been vacant, how long or how many units are going to be vacant over 30, 60, 90 days.
Right. So like if you've ever bought a residential property, you look at DOM or days on market. It would be very similar to that. Like how long is something listed? If it's 1 week or a year, it's a massive difference on what you're gonna how you're gonna handle it. And same thing with us for vacancies. We track every vacancy by day.
We do, and it's really important. Not only there, but also to look at your delinquency. Rents not collected is the equivalent of a vacancy in my mind.
It's 100%. So let's just put it in perspective. If your rents are $900 a month, that means that a vacant or a delinquent is costing you $30 a day, period. 30 days divided by 900, that's 30 a day. So that's how we think of everything. We think of that as dollars lost, right?
Absolutely. Other factors that lead to notice to vacates, which are the move-outs that are coming up, are your satisfaction scores. We like to know how happy our customers are at the properties, and we definitely see a direct correlation to high ratings to high occupancy.
Let's talk about why people move out. Because
Sure.
I think that's important, right? Like, why do people move out of places? Now, what they're going to tell you a lot of times, because they don't like conflict, is that job relocation or moving in with a brother or sister or aunt or uncle or parent or whatever, or roommate or
bought a house or
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's all the BS. Those are all the BS excuses, right? But really, a big reason people move out.
Dissatisfaction.
Right.
Unhappy.
Dissatisfaction on a number of levels. So from my experience, that could be where usually it's around maintenance. They have a dinner party and they've been asking for a month to get their toilet fixed, and their guests are over and it's an inconvenience, and they're like, okay, I've had enough of this place.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's the number. I think it's the number one reason for move out.
Yep, it is, and also neighbors, your neighbors, right? So if it's a complex, we got say just a duplex, and you got somebody next door. I know, like my friend, he lived next door to a guy that owned a nightclub. Now, nothing. The guy could qualify, but needless to say, he brought people home from the nightclub, and they were up all night. And he had young kids, and so he moved. So there are things that happen that a landlord has to be super in tune with on the why. Why do people move, right?
Right. No, it's number one priority. You have to understand why they're leaving.
And the reason that you want to know this is think about all the work here. So you have a vacant, right? And you go in, and first you do the maintenance. Hopefully that's, under a few $100s. And then you have to paint it usually. And that's $400, $500, $600, $700, depending on what it is. And then maybe you do the flooring. So that could be $1,000, maybe more. Okay. So now you're looking at least $2,000 potentially on a turn. Then you have to market it, which is cost you money. And then you actually have your vacancy at $30 a day. Okay, so a vacancy is a big suck in lack of income.
Well, I think it speaks to how you screen your residents. So if you're not properly screening for someone moving in, say, do they have good rental experience? Have they paid on time where they were before? Do they have good credit history? Are they working? What do they make relative to the amount of rent?
Right.
It starts there. You know who's going to be a good resident by screening.
You guys spend all that money, and then guess what? Guess what you screw up on? You take the first person
to fill up to get the occupancy
that can fog a mirror, and you move them in, and then all of a sudden, they're not paying you rent, and you're having to go through the legal, which is expensive, and then you're not collecting rent. And so this is the pattern of a bad landlord or a bad management company, right?
And it's the first way you lose good residents.
It's true. So I'll give you an example. When I decided to build another house, I listed my house, and it got sold very quick, in a month. And I was like, uh-oh. So then I had to go buy something because my house is going to take 2 years to build. So I bought something, and my next door neighbor, I got to know, he moved in that house. I decided to keep it as a rental. He's been there 12 years. Literally, same tenant, never had one move in, one move out. So but I knew what to do. And so for 12 years, I haven't even been over there, right? I've had a couple beers with him, but I just don't need to because he pays on time. He does all the maintenance. He communicates via text or calls or whatever. It's been the greatest rental ever. He's paying down my mortgage, and I have tons of equity in the house now. And, basically I'm thankful that he's paying down my mortgage. This is what you're trying to do. This is the why, right?
Absolutely. Without it, you're sunk. You're going to have turnover and vacancy loss.
It's really, really, really important, guys, that you guys pay attention to this. So what are some other things?
We also are measuring the number of work orders outstanding and how many days they're sitting there. It's important for us to provide service. So what drives the higher ratings is your level of service to the customers. You got to know.
So our policy is what?
A day. We have a 24-hour turnaround.
We get a call for a dishwasher, a plumbing leak. Obviously, a plumbing leak is immediate, but a dishwasher or something that we think can wait, we're on it we're actually, our internal policy is have it fixed in 24 hours, right? Because and then the people are grateful.
And we give them a guarantee for that. It's important to us.
Walk through that.
Well, so we give them a guarantee. If we don't address their issue within 24 hours, we give them a day's rent free. We put our money where our mouth is.
That's some incentive. So now imagine if you're somebody that's busy, you get home, it's 5:00 at night, you find something, and then you call it in or email or whatever. We have all these ways that they can reach us. And then the very next day you come home and it's fixed, right? Sure. That's exactly how it should be. And that is the point of paying rent, by the way. You should not have to pay rent and bitch about the maintenance and all the other things, right?
No question.
I mean, it's just so simple,
right?
But it doesn't always work that way. What are some other things that if you turn over your property to a third party manager, what are some of the other things that I know, like for me, I like to get weekly emails.
You really want to get an update with whatever benchmarks you want to set, similar to what we have, but you also need communication on any potential issues that are hanging out there. Fiscal reporting has got to be part of that. So we like to look at our financials all the time, but if you're hiring a third-party manager, you're going to want to look at the income and the expenses as the month progresses.
That's right. Yeah. So we do that. We're actually real time we know exactly what's deposited every day. We know what's being spent every day. It's not necessarily a good reflection of the whole month, but we do like to look at it for any abnormalities.
It tells you how you're pacing toward your budgeted goal.
Because the overall goal here, guys, is you want to buy things and have it cash flow and then get the money. I mean, it's really that simple, right? And the ways that you don't get the money is if a property manager doesn't keep your property full or they're overspending.
Agree.
So let's talk about that because this is a big one. And, what I like to do is I like to make sure that I'm getting at least 2 or 3 bids from the property manager and talking through things. Because if you just give the property manager an open slate, which a lot of people do, just fix whatever, and then you get this bill for $1,500, right?
Well, and you should insulate yourself, first of all, in the property management agreement so that they have parameters that they have to follow. So if it goes over a budget line item over a certain amount, you should have rules established that says, you're going to contact me if you run into that.
That's a really good point. So, for example, one of the things you might want to say is that they can't spend over $300 or over $500 in any given time without first contacting you, right?
Agree.
That's one item. Mm-hmm. And that will shut down a lot of things, right? Because what will happen a lot of times is property managers it might be them, might be their brother, might be whoever, might be their friend, that's gouging all of and you hope that's not true, but it has happened.
Yeah, you got to watch.
I've seen it happen.
You need to be at the property.
You want to make sure that whatever they're telling you, and you want to be able to talk through it. So if you don't understand maintenance and capital work on stuff, you better get in tune with this stuff. I mean, I just had a pushback on this actually last week where, I'm actually selling a couple small condos that I've owned for like 15 years. And, the buyer is saying, I want all this stuff done. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And we're pushing back and forth. You know what I mean? And it's a management of that. So the buyer is going to want everything, or the landlord or the renter is going to want everything. Right. And if you're trying to keep them, you might want to do it. But you just want to manage this maintenance side of the business.
Well, you do it. I think it was really important point you made to me years and years ago. You said, Leslie, quit trying to trip over all of the expenses and focus more on revenue. The expenses typically fall where they're going to. You get a rhythm down. After being in the business for a while, you start to understand what things cost. But the revenue piece is more important.
People don't do that in life.
Agree.
They don't pay attention to what their auto deposit of their bank account is, but they know exactly what they spent at the grocery store. Right. It's bizarre, but it's just the same way in property management.
Well, yeah, there has to be a system for reporting. How are we compared to market? So I think one of the key components to getting reported to is knowing where you sit in the market. How do we benchmark against that? Getting a market survey on a minimum of monthly basis.
And what she's talking about there is it tells you exactly where your rent should be. So
compared to what yours are.
So there's just to summarize, the why here is that you want the property manager to be communicating to you and have some kind of dialogue. And they're accountable to you. If they're not giving you anything, they're going to run it the way they want. But if they give you these things, they give you occupancy reports, delinquency reports, how long it's been vacant, how much they're going to spend on the expenses, and anything that they might be doing, and they're having to tell you exactly where the rents are and compared to market, it puts more pressure on them. That's what we want. Right?
Right. You always have to be striving toward a market level. And if you don't analyze it, you don't know it.
Yeah. So what happens right now, we got rents growing really quickly. So on that $900 a unit example. A property manager might not, they're just trying to renew that person, for example. So they might just renew that person at 900 for 6 months, and then another year, and then another year, and then another year. And 3 or 4 years later, they're still at
Way
900.
behind. Way
and
behind.
the rents might be 1,100.
Right.
So you might be $200 under market. And so then what happens is you step in and go, hey, this unit's $200 under market. And so then you give that renter a rent increase, and guess what they do?
Skedaddle.
They move.
They move.
Right. Now you have a vacancy. So, and then you have to go in and do all the maintenance. So it's a fine line of, of kind of knowing where the rents are and how you should be pushing those without pushing the tenant out.
Right. Because the customer's going to go shop around. They're
For
going to
sure.
know whether they can move for less.
Yeah. So you're not right. You're not trying to
You're not
push the
outwitting
rents
anything.
above market.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just trying to keep them to market so that if they go look around, they're going to see, oh, okay, well, it's better not to move because it's going to cost me to move. I might as well just stay right here. I see rents are $50 higher now 1 year later. And then you're slowly chipping away at the rent.
Well, and bear in mind, too, when you're raising rent upon renewal, if you're raising all the way to market, you could suffer a vacancy. But keep in mind the amount of days vacant in between.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
important to measure that or balance that so that you don't force a turnover unless it's what you really want.
Right. And if you're really maintained in a great area and you have you have a nice network out there of people looking to rent, you're going to be fine anyway. Right?
Agree.
So, awesome job.
Thank you. Fun stuff.